for as long as we both shall live.
For as long as we both shall live.
Have you ever wondered why we throw such lavish parties when people get married? Or why after the lights go out on the wedding bash, it's customary for the newly married couple to embark on a vacation to some exotic place? Have you ever known a couple who's been together for a long time and you've struggled to picture their married life and what it looks like because they appear distant and far from each other when you're around them? Or what about a couple that's been married for a long time where you don't struggle at all to picture their married life because every time you see them, they seem to be more in love? Have you ever wondered why for some couples the intimacy flame seems to grow faint over the course of time, and while for other couples it seems like the flame of intimacy seems to grow stronger and brighter with the passing of time? Hannah and Tomme believe the secret to this mystery comes down to a simple choice. Who do you choose? Marriage is a party-worthy celebration because it's the most selfless act a person can make. Choosing to give up oneself by choosing the other person as two lives commit to become one. The act of two lives becoming one is truly miraculous and can only be achieved by each partner actively choosing the other. Hannah first chose Tomme when she took him to New York for his 30th birthday to watch the Yankees play, encouraging him to propose to her at his favorite place in the world, Yankee Stadium. It was Tomme's turn to choose his bride. Tomme and Hannah believe the purpose of a honeymoon is to lay the foundation of two lives choosing each other in the pursuit of becoming one. Hannah's favorite place in the world is Santorini, Greece. Since she took Tomme to his favorite place for his birthday, Tomme wanted to experience Hannah's favorite place, so the two embarked on a cruise to the Greek Isles for their honeymoon. After a 26-hour road trip home that spanned nearly 1,800 miles from their wedding in Wilmington, North Carolina, it was time to head to Europe. After departing Denver, Hannah and Tomme had to make a quick stop in Toronto before boarding their flight that would take them to their port of call, Venice, Italy.
E più ti penso, e più mi manchi, ti vedo coi miei occhi stanchi.
Anch'io vorrei star lì con te, stringo il cuscino, sei qui vicino.
E notte fonda, e sei lontano.
Hai il vuoto intorno senza te, il sole più non c'è.
Sono triste e sconsolato come non son stato mai senza te. Senza te.
Tomme and Hannah enjoyed exploring whatever alleyway in turn looked the most interesting in the moment. They both decided that since both of them had been to Venice before and seen the tourist destinations, the most fun things sounded like just strolling and letting their exploring take them to unexpected destinations.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
They walked around for a while, and along their stroll they had a slice of the local pizza and finally came across a cute cafe that they decided to stop and have a drink at before returning to their hotel to get ready for their date night. Hannah and Tomme went back to the Hotel Moresco where they were staying while in Venice. They both got ready and headed out for the first date night of their honeymoon, a private gondola ride for two. They boarded a water taxi and they were off. The plans of the evening consisted of a gondola ride, dinner, and a romantic stroll back to the hotel. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that Hannah and Tomme believe the secret to the mystery of why some couples make it and others don't, and why of those who do make it, only a small percentage of those couples actually seem to be in love with each other, actually delighting in one another's company, all starts with the most fundamental choice in life. Life can be crazy and exciting, like enjoying a romantic date for two in Venice on a gondola before embarking on the trip of a lifetime to the Greek Isles. It can also find itself at times of hardship and struggle. And in between those 2 points lies a spectrum, where anyone who lives with feeling will find themselves multiple times throughout life. It can be so easy to feel in love, like everything is perfect while exploring Europe. But what happens when the newlyweds return home to the monotony of life? Will the honeymoon period last? Or will life settle in and slowly over the course of time erode the magic that accompanied these two newlyweds in the Greek Isles? Like I alluded to at the beginning, the act of becoming one team, one unit, stronger together than both individuals could have ever been apart, is one of the most challenging endeavors attempted. Tomme and Hannah believe that the honeymoon trip is a time to lay that foundation of who do you choose? But I digress. Tomme and Hannah enjoyed a lovely time together on their first night of their honeymoon. It felt like something out of a storybook. The next day, it was time to set sail for the Baltic Sea. So Tomme and Hannah boarded the Norwegian Star, put their things in their stateroom, and decided that leaving port from one of the hot tubs sounded lovely. After leaving port, Hannah and Tomme enjoyed their first cruise dinner in the main atrium before heading back to their room to get some rest for their first stop on their cruise, Kotor, Montenegro. Tomme and Hannah were excited for their first stop on their cruise. They were scheduled to go on a catamaran boat tour. They were disappointed, however, to learn that their boat tour had been canceled, and since it was canceled, they didn't have tender tickets to leave the ship. Since Tomme and Hannah didn't have tender tickets, they had to wait an hour and a half to leave the ship, and they ended up being among the last to leave. They finally made it to Montenegro. Hannah and Tomme both battled some discouragement and disappointment on the first day of their cruise, but decided to make the best of their time in Montenegro. Tomme and Hannah believe that the secret to a happy marriage lies in the simple choice of who and what do you choose. On their first day, Hannah and Tomme were confronted with multiple choices on how to feel and how to react. But below all of those perceived choices, there really was only two choices on the table. Were they going to choose themselves or choose the other person? They were greeted with some disappointment on their first day, and their choice was to either choose themselves and add to the storm that life had brought, or for each of them to actively choose to give up themselves in choosing the other, being the calm in each other's storm, and to make the best of their time in Montenegro. And choose each other they did. Hannah and Tomme decided to just wing it once they got on shore and follow their blueprint from Venice, to just let their curiosity lead their self-guided tour. After strolling the polished tile streets of Couture, making stops all along their journey to check out cute little stores, interesting landmarks, kittens, an old fort, and more, Hannah and Tomme saw that the sun was starting to set, which meant that their time on Couture was coming to a close. What started as a day that could have gone either way had turned into a magical day, exploring the streets of Montenegro. Hannah and Tomme weren't quite ready to bid Couture farewell yet, so they found a local cafe and enjoyed a glass of wine together while they just took in the sights and sounds of the island city before they headed back to their ship. Upon arriving back on the ship, Hannah and Tomme were excited for their dinner reservations at the Brazilian steakhouse. They enjoyed their romantic dinner before deciding to cap their surprise by joy of a day by relaxing in the hot tub. They were both excited for their next stop, so after they enjoyed each other's company in the hot tub, they headed back to their room to get some rest. Next stop, Corfu, Greece. Tomme and Hannah were excited for Corfu because they had booked the Taste of Corfu excursion, excursion as Hannah and Tomme called them. So they left the ship, boarded their tour bus, and they were off. First stop, one of Corfu's most picturesque beaches. They stopped there just for enough time to get their feet wet and sandy and to take some pics before it was time to move on to stop number 2, tasting the local cuisine and sampling some of the local wine. It was at stop number 2, however, that Hannah and Tomme started to realize that bus tours were not really for them, but I'll get back to that. After sampling the local cuisine over a glass of wine, Tomme and Hannah decided to go back outside and take in the sights before having to get back on the bus to head to stop number 3. Stop number 3 was a nunnery, and it was at this point on their excursion that Hannah and Tomme started to grow weary of not being able to see the things that interested them, because the tour didn't allow it. So they decided to break from the tour and meet at the bus when it was time to head to stop number 4. They thoroughly enjoyed their time together at the nunnery, exploring on their own before it was time to move on. After leaving the nunnery, there were just 2 more stops on their excursion before their tour was finished. They stopped at a distillery before heading back to the main town of Corfu, where they could finally explore on their own. They learned something that day, and that was that they both loved to travel the same way. They both loved to set out on explorations that are guided only by their curiosity. They could both take or leave tourist hotspots and much prefer to experience the heartbeat of destinations they visit. So at the time they had left before having to board their ship, they set off on a curiosity-driven tour. Once Tomme and Hannah made it back aboard their vessel, first things first, cancel all remaining excursions that Tomme and Hannah signed up for before enjoying a hibachi dinner. After their dinner, Tomme and Hannah wanted to see if they were lucky. And they learned very quickly that at least on that night, they were not. Next stop, Argostoli, Greece. First things first, since all excursions had been canceled successfully, Tomme and Hannah needed to find a local ATV rental shop, and they did just that, renting an ATV, and they were off. The only thing they had to worry about was whether they should turn left or turn right, how far they would allow those turns to take them before deciding to make another turn. When and where to stop and get off to check out a beach, a fun alleyway, or sit and enjoy each other's company over a cup of coffee? Did they make turns that ended up not leading to what they were hoping for? Of course, that's life. When someone decides to stop playing games in life, when they decide to forego boxes of safety and embrace a life that allows every experience to touch them, embracing the reality that in life, wrong turns are inevitable, conflict is natural, and that the inevitability of wrong turns and conflict are merely opportunities for intimacy to grow stronger and deeper. That is when you start to truly live. Life can be so complicated at times, especially when two lives make a commitment to join in marriage to become one unit, fortified by the bond of a pure and true selfless love that commits to address the good, the bad, and the ugly of each other. What's the secret ingredient that simplifies the complexity of life? Well, it may be a number of things, but for Tomme and Hannah, it is a fundamental belief that communication changes everything. Tomme and Hannah believe that when there is a conflict, communication is the secret to strengthen their intimate bond. While it may seem silly that the example used here is canceling excursions, I would ask you to please stay with me. What if Tomme and Hannah, for whatever reason, chose not to communicate to each other that they each weren't really the biggest fans of bus tours? I'll tell you, they wouldn't have rented ATVs at their two remaining stops. Frustration would have started to grow that drove a wedge in their oneness. Instead, though, they shared their feelings with each other, and the rest is history. But wait a second. I thought this trip was for Tomme to experience Hannah's favorite place in the world. A place with water so blue it looks like it had to have been dyed. A place known as Calieste, meaning the beautiful one. While every destination thus far has been beautiful, anticipation filled the newlyweds to make it to Hannah's favorite place in the world. I'd like to welcome you to Santorini. Remember how I said at the beginning of this video that Tomme and Hannah believe that the secret to a happy and healthy marriage lies in one seemingly simple choice that, in reality, can be challenging to put into practice? The choice of who and what do you choose? Tomme and Hannah chose to learn from their tender experience on Montenegro, instead of allowing it to bring discouragement into their time together. So this time, they weren't going to be the last ones off the ship. Tomme chose his bride by setting their alarm for 7 a.m. to get a good spot in line to get tender tickets when they handed them out at 8:30 that morning. Hannah also chose her groom by getting each of them Starbucks to enjoy while they waited in line to get tickets to leave the ship. Oh, I'm sorry, you must be wondering about the donkeys. Let me explain. Santorini sits on top of volcanoes, so there are 3 ways to reach the top of the volcanic mountains. You can ride a cable car to the top, walk up a steep trail, or, you guessed it, you could pay locals to ride a donkey to the top. Yeah, Tommy and Hannah were feeling quite froggy, meaning adventurous, that day and elected to allow donkeys to take them to the top. And quite the experience it was. Hannah's donkey, seemed to be quite hungry, making frequent stops for some snacks along the journey, while Tommy's seemed to randomly decide to take breaks. Very stubborn mules they were. Anyways, they finally made it to the top of Santorini, both agreeing that the donkey experience, well, kind of scary at times, since the donkeys walked as close as they could to the edge of the cliff, was all in all
Stop. Worth it.
Completely worth it. Upon reaching the top, Hannah and Tommy, of course, had plans to find a local ATV rental shop, but they first wanted to wash their hands from riding the donkeys, so they found a local cafe. And they found it fitting for each of them to order a yellow donkey, a local beer brewed on Santorini. After enjoying the sights for a bit, Tommy and Hannah rented an ATV and their adventure continued. Santorini was unlike any of the other stops thus far because Hannah had already been there, like I mentioned earlier. Santorini is Hannah's favorite place in the world. The excitement that accompanied the newlyweds on this day of their honeymoon was next level. This was the moment the 2 honeymooners had been waiting for. There's something magical about the sharing in and experiencing someone's favorite place. You see, Tommy's excitement was more than experiencing a new place, it was that he was experiencing his best friend's favorite place. And Hannah's excitement was more than being back in her favorite place in the world, it was that she was in her favorite place in the world with her favorite person in the world. Oh right, Santorini. Like I said, Tommy and Hannah rented an ATV and it was time for Hannah to introduce Tommy to her favorite place in the world. The 2 set off much like they did in Argostoli, with the only itinerary for the day being satisfying their wanderlust and curiosity. Hannah showed Tommy where she stayed when she was there before. She showed him the mountain she got stuck on, as well as other memorable things from her time when she was there. They also wanted to explore new places that neither of them had ever seen before. So between cruising on their ATV and walking the narrow, winding streets in the calderas, they went wherever looked fun and exciting. They enjoyed having a hero at a local cafe that overlooked the water, strolling the quaint streets and finding souvenirs that commemorated their time on Santorini. They were scheduled to be in Santorini until 9 p.m. local time, but around 6:30-ish, they noticed dark clouds forming off the coastline. They asked a local shop owner if it was supposed to storm and were told that it wasn't going to storm until the following day. So Tommy thought that the storm must form right off the coast and not come ashore, while Hannah remained skeptical. Hannah's skepticism proved to be legitimate, because within 10 or 15 minutes the wind started howling so hard that the merchandise from local stores started to blow into the street. So much dust was being kicked up that it was hard to see, and then came the rain. As it started to pour, as the wind whipped, Tommy knew that they needed to find cover, and they needed to find it fast. He quickly located a covered area behind a restaurant. The two waited out the storm there, watching as the restaurant below was completely abandoned with tables still full of food and drinks. Seeing their cruise ship get struck by lightning not once but twice, knocking out all of the lights on their ship other than the bottom few floors for a few minutes. And seeing as their ship was cut loose from its anchor as it rotated 180 degrees during the storm. Another newlywed couple who had been taking cover with Hannah and Tommy pulled radar up on their phone and said that the storm was a small storm cell, and that there would be a short window to make it to the ship before a much longer storm cell moved in. So both couples decided that making it to the cable car would be challenging, and that it was highly likely that with the storm, they might have closed the cable cars. So they decided to wait for the break in the storm and make a dash for it down the same trail that they had ridden donkeys up earlier that morning. Since donkeys don't have bathrooms, the trail that is now being used as Santorini's drainage system is also full of donkey fecal matter. By this time it was dark and rainy, and the newlyweds hoped with every step that they took, they wouldn't feel a squish, which proved to be an impossibility. Well, the moment that Tommy and Hannah had been waiting for had come to a close as they bid Santorini farewell for now. What was still in store for their trip? Well, an engine fire that would warrant a code Bravo to be called at 1 a.m. as their ship sat dead in the water for over an hour. The engine fire made it to where they weren't able to make it to Dubrovnik, Croatia. Tommy and Hannah were discouraged with this, but chose to make the best of their 2 days on the ship. They enjoyed running around the quarter-mile track that was on their ship, and they entered into a competition to see who the perfect couple was. Here, hold on a second. Have a look.
Alright, and our last couple will be Tommy and Hannah from Colorado.
We're from Denver, Colorado, and we're celebrating our honeymoon. So,
Honeymoon! Oh, that's why yesterday I was feeling the ship shaking a little bit. That might be you guys. Yeah, okay. When you're blushing, don't blush. It's okay. It's easy. So we're gonna start with the apple game. Roll, roll, roll until you bite the apple. Whoever bites the apple first. What's going on? Oh my God! What's going on? Don't drop her! Oh my God! I'm getting too serious with that. I'm scared. Did you get it, Ali? Wow. And it was actually, wow, you had to. Seriously, after that, it was just like, okay. Right here for couple number 1. Excellent. I love it. We're going to use a lemon. It is a game that I call the lemon shot. She will get the lemon. There we go, love. She will place inside the pants. We'll roll it all the way up. Pass it to the traffic area. There we go. And bring it down to the other side. You can do it, girl. Oh, traffic area. Oh, he's having fun. Oh, she lost it. I already said stop this kind of game. I see that. All right. Now, cool question for you. You just got married. Oh, nice pendant, by the way. Have you ever been blindfolded before?
I have.
Ooh, interesting. There we go. We go this way now. Excellent. There we go. Audience, help me to count down on everybody. 3, 2, 1, and go. go!
All right, babe, turn to your right a little bit. Straight. Stop. Take a step to your left. Left. Straighten your stick. No, step back. Back up, half step. Straighten your stick. Bring it to your left a little bit. To your left.
You don't have to point it. She cannot
Right,
see
go in.
it.
Straight.
Don't move it. There we go. There we go. Okay, we're gonna start right here with couple number one. Please come over. You're gonna place the balloon between your legs. So audience, please help me to count down and everybody. 3, 2, 1, and go. Here she comes. Here she comes. Get the balloon and pop it. There we go. Good job. Good job. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Where's the balloon? Where's the balloon? She needs a balloon. There we go. Close your legs, sir. Close your legs if you want to have kids. Pop it. Yes. Good job. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Come on. Here she comes. Here she comes. And wow! Who is the winner for the perfect couple game show this evening? Couple number one! Excelente! So,
We won! On the 2 remaining ship days, Hannah and Tommy enjoyed spending time by the pool. They enjoyed making friends with some fellow cruisers, but most importantly, they just enjoyed spending time with each other. They decided to have their honeymoon celebration dinner on the last night of their voyage at the French steakhouse on board their ship. The final few days seemed to fly by as moments were shared and memories were made to last a lifetime. But like anything in life, the time had come to head to the airport and head back to their home in Littleton, Colorado. The real question, though, is will the oneness that the newlyweds shared during their magical time in the Greek Isles be left in the Isles of Greece, or will Hannah and Tommy bring it home with them? Just like after buying a new car, when that first maintenance issue arises, the buzz of the new car starts to wear off. The same is true with marriages. Psychology calls it the honeymoon phase. Is it even possible to keep the honeymoon phase alive? Or is its demise an unavoidable inevitability? Tommy and Hannah would be the first to admit that they're not sure, but they believe that as long as each of them actively chooses the other person, as long as they embrace the fact that in life conflicts will arise, and to choose to see even the most challenging of times as opportunities to grow closer and more intimate, then maybe, just maybe, they will be able to keep the bright flame of their newlywed love burning bright.
day.